Welcome back, everyone. We're so glad you stopped back by for another creepy and spooky story from Graveyard Dance. Last week, for the last couple of weeks, we've done a couple of videos called Terrifying Tales for Kids and More Terrifying Tales for Kids. We wanted to try our hand at fiction for a change to see if anyone likes it. Let us know in the comments section. This week, we decided to darken it back up again. We hope you like the story we're about to tell you. Although it is a true story and it happened over a century ago, the most important thing you can take from this is always lock your doors. We want you to always be safe so you can keep watching our videos. We also want to keep you around to feed your doggy or kitty cat. Oh, what was that? You don't have a pet? You will if you head on over to eyesofadog.com. If you live within the United States, you'll find all the rescues, adoption centers, and pounds in your area. Just click your state, then city or town, and boom. Next thing you know, your cat or dog is protecting you from anyone who knocks on the door after you watch this spooky video. Grab some snacks, cuddle up with your favorite person and pets, and head on over to graveyarddance.com for this video and so many more like it. With all that said, enjoy. Imagine it, you're living in New Orleans. No, not modern day. I'm talking over 100 years ago. Can you imagine how strange it would be? In the early 1900s, New Orleans underwent significant changes and faced various challenges that shaped its development during that period. By 1900, French instruction in schools was declining as the city was rapidly industrializing. The Creole elite, who had long been prominent in New Orleans society, were losing their influence as the city's neighborhoods diversified with immigrants from various backgrounds. In 1905, New Orleans experienced a devastating outbreak of yellow fever, which claimed the lives of over 40,000 residents. This epidemic marked the final occurrence of yellow fever in the United States. The city also faced natural disasters such as hurricanes in 1909 and 1915, adding to the challenges of public health and infrastructure resilience. Despite facing hardships such as disease outbreaks and natural calamities, New Orleans maintained its cosmopolitan character during this period. The city's unique cultural blend persisted, with French language still prevalent and contributing to its distinctive linguistic heritage. While some jazz musicians left for other cities during the Great Migration, New Orleans continued to be recognized for its rich musical traditions and contributions to jazz. Overall, New Orleans in the early 1900s was a dynamic city undergoing transformation due to industrialization, demographic shifts, technological advancements, and ongoing challenges related to public health and environmental resilience. But do you want to know what really sucked? Well, aside from the mosquitoes. Anyone? Okay, I'll tell you. Crime. Crime really sucked starting in May of 1918 and lasting till October of 1919. Not exactly the time frame you'd want to invite friends or family over. Unless they really annoyed the living, yeah, moving on. Anywho, where was I? The Axeman is known to have targeted at least 12 victims, although the distinct pattern of the killer's attacks was not identified until several similar incidents occurred. The initial victims of the Axeman were Joseph Maggio and his wife Catherine. The couple operated a grocery store and barroom from their residence. On May 23, 1918, while they were asleep in bed, the Axeman broke into their home and used a razor, later discovered in a neighbor's yard, to slit their throats. Additionally, both Joseph and Catherine sustained blows to the head from an axe. What kind of wingnut would do such a thing to someone simply minding their own business and sleeping in their own bed, and for no reason? It takes someone pretty screwed up in the head. That will become obvious when you hear what this space cadet said in his letter to police. Not exactly someone whose biscuits are entirely covered by their gravy. Where was I? Oh yeah, so after he kills Joseph and Catherine, the killer changed out of his bloody clothes, washed up a bit, and put on some of Joseph's clothes before walking outside. He then strolls outside and takes some chalk and scribbles a note on the ground for whoever to find. It read, Mrs. Maggio will sit up tonight just like Mrs. Tony. That was believed to be a reference to Anthony and Joanna Siambra, Italian greengrocers who were attacked in 1911, a few years prior. Was it the same dude? Or was it another guy who was trying to be a copycat? Who knows? What was known was in those days. It wasn't like modern-day, everyday headlines of constant true crime headlines. Things like this rarely happened back then, and when they did happen, it was shocking to say the least. The razor they found out in the yard belonged to Joseph's brother Andrew, who just happened to live in the apartment right next to his brother and sister-in-law who had just been killed. Not looking good for Andrew. According to one of the employees who worked for Andrew at his barber shop down the street, Andrew took the razor home to be sharpened because it had a nick in the blade. Was the killer in Andrew's apartment first and see it and decide to go to the next apartment over? If not, why wasn't Andrew a victim? Police ruled out robbery because nothing that they could see was missing. Andrew claimed to hear moaning when he woke up during the night, but that he never heard any of the brutal attack. When pressed by the police, he claimed he was drunk. The police didn't buy it. That is until more murders would come up with a very similar way. During the wee hours of the morning hours on June 27, 1918, Louis Bessumer and his mistress Harriet Lowe were attacked in private quarters at the back of Bessumer's grocery, located at the corner of Dorgenois and La Harpe streets. Louis was struck with a hatchet above his right temple, causing a skull fracture. Harriet was hit with an axe over the left ear and left with one side of her face permanently paralyzed. But thankfully, though, they both did manage to survive the brutal attack. They were found the next morning by bakery wagon driver John Zanka. When he called the police and they investigated the scene, they found the weapon used had belonged to Louis himself. Sound familiar? The killer was using whatever he could find at the victim's residence where he was going. The first thing police did was round up the first black guy they could find. 41-year-old Louis Obicon, who had been employed by Louis a week earlier, supposedly gave conflicting statements on where he was during the crime. The police had no evidence at all, but they were convinced they had their man. He was released due to them not having anything to hold them on, but the circus was just beginning. Harriet's bump on her head must have really done something to her because she gave all kinds of false and misleading statements to investigators. They knew they were lies because she gave so many different stories. She was even making statements attacking the character of the guy she was having the affair with and who was also attacked. Even though Harriet was caught telling some whoppers, Louis Bessumer was in fact now on police radar for some foreign written letters in his possession. He was now arrested for espionage. He was arrested and was only jailed 2 days. Years later, on her deathbed, Harriet again tried to bring the law down upon her former lover by now claiming that he was the one who attacked her. Obviously, they somehow believed her because he was rearrested and sentenced to 9 months in jail. I didn't know about you, but to me, it sounds like more of a shit show than a presidential election. So, yeah. Next on the list was Anna Schneider. Killing anyone is bad, but there was seriously no reason for this. Anna was only 28 years old and 8 months pregnant at the time. During the early morning hours of August 5, 1918, she woke up to some big dude in the dark standing over her. He grabbed a lamp on a nearby table and bashed her head in, tearing off her scalp. Amazingly and thankfully, she did manage to live through the attack, just like the previous couple, but the trauma she endured sent her into premature labor a month earlier than she was due. The baby was born healthy though, so thank God for that. Her husband reported that the only thing missing from the home was about $6 or $7 taken from his wallet. James Gleason, who was an ex-convict and lived nearby, was arrested shortly after Anna was found. He was later released due to lack of evidence. Lead investigators began to believe that the attack was related to the previous incidents, Bessumer and Maggio incidents. Nah, you don't say. What would give them that idea? Them are some really smart fellas there, am I right? On the morning of August 10th, 1918, Pauline and Mary Bruno were startled awake by noises coming from the room adjacent to where their elderly uncle, Joseph Romano, slept. Upon investigating, they found Romano with severe head injuries, evidently from a vicious attack. The perpetrator had already fled, but the sisters managed to provide a description: a dark-skinned, hefty man in a dark suit and slouched hat. Despite being able to walk to the ambulance, Romano succumbed to his injuries 2 days later. Oddly, his house had been ransacked, yet nothing was stolen. A bloody axe found in the backyard and a chiseled backdoor panel pointed to a brutal crime scene. This murder sent New Orleans into a frenzy of fear, with residents fearing an Axeman onslaught. Numerous sightings and reports flooded the police, with some claiming to have seen the killer lurking in neighborhoods and even finding axes in their own yards. John D'Antonio, a retired Italian detective, drew parallels between this case and a series of killings in 1911, suggesting a pattern of motiveless violence. He theorized the perpetrator to be a person with dual personas, likening them to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, capable of oscillating between normalcy and murderous impulses. On the evening of March 10, 1919, Italian immigrant Charles Cortimiglia and his family, his wife Rosie and their infant daughter Mary, were viciously attacked in their home on the corner of Jefferson Avenue and 2nd Street in Gretna, Louisiana, a suburb of New Orleans. When grocer Irlando Giordano heard screams from the Cortimiglia residence, he rushed across the street to investigate. To his horror, he found the entire family had fallen victim to the axeman. Charles and Rosie had sustained skull fractures from axe blows, with the weapon later discovered on their back porch, while Mary tragically lost her life in her mother's arms after a blow to the back of her neck. Despite the brutality of the attack, nothing was stolen, though a panel on the back door had been chiseled away. Charles was released from the hospital 2 days later, but Rosie remained under medical care. Upon regaining consciousness, Rosie accused Giordano and his 18-year-old son, Frank, of perpetrating the attack. However, given Irlando's age and poor health, it seemed implausible for him to have carried out such violence. Furthermore, Frank's large stature, he stood over 6 feet tall and weighed more than 200 pounds, made it unlikely for him to fit through the panel on the back door. Despite Charles's protests of his wife's accusations, the police arrested the Giordanos and charged them with the murders. Subsequently, both men were found guilty, with Frank sentenced to hang and his father to life imprisonment. Charles, disillusioned by his wife's betrayal, filed for divorce after the trial. Nearly a year later, Rosie confessed to falsely accusing the Giordanos out of jealousy and spite, leading to their exoneration and release. Soon after, authorities got this crazy letter in the mail. It read as follows: Hell, March 13th, 1919. Esteemed mortal, they have never caught me and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. If you wish, you may tell the police to be careful not to rile me. Of course, I am a reasonable spirit. I take no offense at the way they have conducted their investigations in the past. In fact, they have been so utterly stupid as to not only amuse me, but His Satanic Majesty, Francis Joseph, etc. But tell them to beware. Let them not try to discover what I am, for it were better that they were never born than to incur the wrath of the Axeman. I don't think there is any need of such a warning, for I feel sure the police will always dodge me, as they have in the past. They are wise and know how to keep away from all harm. Undoubtedly, you Orleanians think of me as a most horrible murderer, which I am, but I could be much worse if I wanted to. If I wished, I could pay a visit to your city every night. At will I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the angel of death. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time on next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well, then, so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of your people who do not jazz it out on that specific Tuesday night, if there be any, will get the axe. Well, as I am cold and crave the warmth of my native Tartarus, and it is about time I leave your earthly home, I will cease my discourse. Hoping that thou wilt publish this, that it may go well with thee, I have been, am, and will be the worst spirit that ever existed either in fact or realm of fantasy. The Axeman. During the early hours of August 10th, 1919, grocer Steve Boca was abruptly awakened in his bedroom by an intruder wielding an axe. Startled from his sleep, Boca found himself face to face with a shadowy figure looming over his bed. Struggling to grasp the situation, he managed to flee to the street to assess the intrusion, only to discover a severe head injury upon regaining consciousness. Seeking refuge, Boca sought help from his neighbor, Frank Janusa, where he ultimately collapsed, losing consciousness once more. Despite the violence of the attack, nothing was stolen from Boca's home, yet, mirroring previous incidents, a panel on the back door had been tampered with. Although Boca eventually recovered from his injuries, the details of the assault remained obscured from his memory. Notably, this attack occurred in the wake of the infamous Axeman letter. During the evening of September 3rd, 1919, Sarah Lawman became the victim of a brutal attack within her apartment. Concerned neighbors, noting her absence and silence, intervened by entering her home, only to uncover the unconscious 19-year-old lying on her bed. Lawman bore the aftermath of a grievous assault, marked by a severe head injury and the loss of several teeth, inflicted by an intruder who gained entry through an open window. The discovery of a bloody axe on the front lawn heightened the sense of horror and alarm. Although Lawman eventually recovered from her physical wounds, the traumatic experience left her unable to recall any specifics of the attack. During the night of October 27, 1919, the wife of Mike Pepitone was startled from sleep by a disturbance and rushed to her husband's bedroom door, only to encounter a menacing figure wielding an axe, hastily departing the scene. Inside, Pepitone lay injured, his head bearing the evidence of a vicious blow, his blood staining the room, even besmirching an image of the Virgin Mary. Despite her terror, Pepitone's wife, a mother of 6, could offer only a vague description of the assailant as large. The Pepitone murder marked the last of the reported Axeman attacks. Who was the Axeman, though? Crime writer Colin Wilson has put forth the theory that Joseph Monfort could have been the elusive Axeman, citing his demise at the hands of the widow of Mike Pepitone, the last known victim of the Axeman. This theory has gained traction in various true crime circles. However, Michael Newton, another true crime author, conducted thorough research in public records, police files, and newspaper archives in both New Orleans and Los Angeles, but found no evidence of a person named Joseph Monfort meeting such a fate in Los Angeles. Furthermore, Newton couldn't locate any records indicating Mrs. Pepitone's involvement in such an incident or her presence in California. While Monfort was a common surname in New Orleans at the time, there's limited evidence to support the existence of an individual named Joseph Monfort or Mumford connected to the crimes. Regarding the Skyamber couple, early potential victims of the Axeman, they were shot in their home in 1912, with the suspect sometimes referred to as Monfort in newspaper reports. Though the method differed from the Axeman's typical attacks, if Joseph Monfort was indeed the Axeman, the Skyambra incident might suggest his early criminal activity. Scholar Richard Warner identifies Frank Doc Mumphrey, 1875 to 1921, who used the alias Leon Joseph Monfer/Manfra as the primary suspect. Mumphrey's jazz business in the Garden District flourished notably after the city was compelled to embrace jazz culture to appease the Axeman's threats of violence. Did he get hurt, though, or killed somehow? Did he simply move on, or did he simply stop? No one knows. What is known, though, is that the folks in New Orleans had a hard time sleeping and feeling safe for a very long time afterwards. Well, we hope you enjoyed the video. Have you taken that moment to subscribe so you'll be notified when we upload new content? Also, check out our merch shop at graveyarddance.com. You can also see all the rest of our work there as well. Anywho, gotta go. Thanks for watching, everyone. We dearly appreciate each and every one of you.